Welcome to Royal Birmingham Conservatoire's conversation about the upcoming production of Into the Woods. It is a couple of weeks away, so we're getting pretty close now. Really pleased to welcome Paul Wingfield from the, there we go, spotlighted. Really pleased to welcome Paul Wingfield, who's head of Vocal and Operatic, although he's not directly conducting this production this time round, so I'll have a little bit of a chat with Paul shortly. Also pleased to welcome Sydney, Bella and Hannah from the Vocal and Operatic Department, who are going to be with us for a little bit of conversation later on. I'm very pleased to have everybody here and to learn more about this production. I've got to put my hand up and say it's not one that I've seen. I have not even watched the film, so I'm on a bit of a voyage of discovery with everybody that's with us tonight. You all probably know it much better than I do. I look forward to finding out a little bit more from students and our resident expert from the Operatic Department, Paul, as well. So we're going to hear all about Into the Woods, but also a little bit of a wider ranging conversation about what the department works like and how it functions. You may have seen some of our other productions like Orpheus and Eurydice. We did Dido and Aeneas a little while ago as well as the opera scenes. So we'll be diving into some of those conversations, largely because Paul's been involved in those, as have the three students with us as well. They're all fairly advanced in their careers at RBC now as well. What other notices do I need to give? I've talked about the recording. So I'm very pleased to welcome members of Royal Birmingham Conservatoire Association. For those of you that aren't members and may not know about it, the RBCA is a membership scheme that directly contributes to supporting our students, some of whom are with us this evening and some of whom are not, but receive an annual stipend towards their cost of living. As you may or may not be aware, it's very expensive to come to university now. It's really, really expensive to cost of living is ever increasing. So we're really grateful to those supporters who make it possible for our students that are experiencing some difficulty to focus on their studies. So really grateful to all those that are members that are with us tonight. And if you'd like to know more about becoming a member of the RBCA and the amazing benefits that you can receive, we will pop a link to the webpage in our chat function later on. And if you have any questions about that, always happy to answer those. But thank you again for our supporters and donors. You make all of this incredible art possible, and we're really grateful to you. Of course, buying tickets to come and see the shows is also incredibly important. So if you've not yet bought a ticket to Into the Woods, strongly encourage you to do so. Three or four performances that are coming up, guys?
4 performances.
4 performances that are coming up. So please do take the chance and buy your tickets while you can. It's going to be quite a show. I'm really looking forward to it. The vocal and operatic shows are always some of the highlights of the year for me. So I'm really quite excited to see what this one is. So Paul, I've got some questions. I'd like to welcome you first and foremost. Thank you for being with us. I've got a few questions for you, but they're going to be quite loose weave. So feel free to go off piste a little bit if you so desire. But you've been head of vocal and opera at RBC since 2017. So coming up on 10 years, you've staged some ambitious and well-regarded, well-reviewed performances here with us. But even before you were head of, you've been working with us for a while. Can you tell me what drew you to RBC and why you've come to Birmingham? You've been all around the world, all up and down the UK. Why is Birmingham special?
That's a very good question to start with. And hello, everyone. Very nice to be here this evening in such esteemed company and amongst all of our supporters. So this is very nice to share some time together. Birmingham, there's something in the water at Birmingham, I think. So I began for 3 years as a freelance conductor, having been at the Yetta Parker Young Artist Programme at what is now the Royal Ballet and Opera, was then the Royal Opera House. I was freelancing around doing various things in this country and abroad. And my predecessor was staging opera scenes, and I reached out to him, Julian Pike, to see whether I might be able to be involved in some way. And that's where my association with Royal Birmingham Conservatoire, or Birmingham Conservatoire as it was back then, began. And I did 3 years of opera scenes, and I quickly realised that there was something in the water at Birmingham with the students very supportive of one another. There was a real sort of camaraderie amongst the student body, which is really quite unique actually amongst conservatoires. Having done a lot of young artist programs, worked with lots of students in other places, I really do feel that there's something really quite extraordinary about the student body in Birmingham. So I did 3 years of that. I enjoyed myself so much, and I always knew that as well as performing, that that teaching was going to be a very important part of what I did. And on top of that as well, we were about to have a young family, my wife and I. So there were these sort of three things in my life: performing, teaching, and family life, which were all sort of coming together at the same time. So the stars aligned, and I applied for the job at Birmingham, and the rest is history, really. But it's been a fantastic ride, and one of the great sort of responsibilities I have, one of the great privileges as well of the job, is making sure that that very special feeling that I encountered on day one of being a freelancer, coming out of the Royal Opera House and working with these students, that I maintain and protect that very special atmosphere amongst the students in the department, which is really what makes the place unique.
Is it coincidental that you joined us around about the time that we got the Royal Charter as well, or was it just the Queen looking at you going, well, if he's there, then it must be all right?
I was very lucky with my timing, actually, because I began my time at the Conservatoire as head of department with the new building as well. So then, I mean, it all feels as though it was yesterday, to be quite, frank. But actually, yeah, all of that happened. This very exciting moment in the history of the Conservatoire coincided quite by chance with me starting as well. So I've been able to sort of ride that wave, and that's been very, very exciting. And actually, I think Birmingham continues on the up, because I can only speak in terms of the vocal students, but we see so much success now from the vocal students, and there was always success there. There were always sort of wonderful stories coming out of the Conservatoire, but now increasingly we see more and more students. I mean, we've got some wonderful stories. One of our students, not in the Sondheim, is about to play the title role in British youth operas, A Rake's Progress. So that's great news to shout about, as well as 3 other students involved in that production. And we've got a number of students actually out at the moment at the Grange Festival, at Garsington, at Opera Holland Park, anyway, various places all around, and at Glyndebourne actually as well, all doing things and representing the department. So hopefully it speaks to the success and the quality of the teaching that the students are getting, that we're, it's very, very difficult to be a singer these days. It's impossibly difficult, where, you really have to be on top form in order to compete with everything that's coming out of the conservatoires. Very high quality singing coming out of the other conservatoires. So we're really punching above our weight. And I think it's very important to say actually at this point as well, some of our company tonight may not realise, but what we don't have at Royal Birmingham Conservatoire is a specialist postgraduate opera course. So it's we do opera, but we don't have an opera course. So unlike somewhere like the Royal Academy, the Royal College, or Guildhall, which is where I trained, we don't have specialist students who have gone through their undergraduate, their masters, and are now doing their sort of finishing school, doing an opera course. Instead, what makes us unique is the fact that we are doing opera, but we are casting undergraduates, if they're ready, and master's students in those operas. So actually, Sydney, Bella and Hannah are all undergraduates with us, and all of them, in one form or another, at least over the past 2 years, have been involved in some shape or form with our operas, which means that they will graduate from us. Sydney and Hannah are about to graduate shortly, and Bella in her 3rd year. They're about to graduate with roles under their belt in a way that, were they studying at another conservatoire, they might not yet have had the chance to be on stage, or they may have been on stage but might have only been in chorus. Here at Birmingham, what's really unique is that they get the chance, very early on, to get get this role experience. And you know, the more I talk to people, you know, students who have then moved on to London or wherever for master's study, the more the feedback comes back that actually I've come out of Birmingham, I've got so much more experience than the people that are on my course, and isn't that an amazing thing? And I think it really is a wonderfully, it's very easy, I think, for conservatoires all to feel like the same thing. They're all doing the same sort of thing, but there are ways in which Birmingham is very, very unique, you know. And I think that that's been recognised then by things like the Limbury Trust funding, which we've received, you know, for the last 3 years and now renewed for a further 3 years, seeing that actually what we do in terms of opera making is very, you know, is unique and is offering opportunity in a way that isn't available elsewhere. So that's a very long answer, but anyway, I told you I would talk until you stopped me. So.
You've covered about 3 of my questions there. So I'll circle back to opera making and Limbury in a moment, but just to pick up on what you were saying there, I think there's quite a few students have said to me as I've been sort of introducing them to donors and having conversations with them generally, just about the sheer breadth of opportunities that RBC provides. And that's one of the things that they've found most exciting and refreshing about being involved with RBC. And I think there must be, so as you said, something in the water with Birmingham, because I've been involved in the art scene in Birmingham for too long now, and or never too long. You can never be too long in Birmingham, but for a long time. And all of the other sort of institutions, Birmingham Royal Ballet, they all give opportunities to relatively quote unquote junior members of companies, because it's all talent based and you don't have to have paid your dues by being spear carrier number 3. Never has to say anything. You know, there is a recognition of providing opportunities, drive talent.
I think so, absolutely. Yes, and I mean in the conservatoire, you know, again, our company may not know this, but all the students in their 4th year have to do a final project where they have to organise an event which they get examined on. So that might be this year we had a 1-act Menotti opera. It might be a concert, it might be a choral, something, it might be an education project, outreach project. They all have to have this sort of entrepreneurial streak to their degree, and they get assessed on that. And I think that's absolutely key. When I think about what I did, you know, as a student, when I, you know, there's partly through the encouragement of my parents as well, putting on concerts and, you know, I remember putting on Figaro in my college library as an undergraduate, and all of those skills have become so key to everything that I do now as a musician. The ability to actually make something out of nothing, often on a shoestring budget. You know, these things are
we're working on it, Paul. We're working on it.
are really essential skills for anyone going into the industry. Industry is very challenging these days, so it's really, really important. And then in the city itself, you know, if you think about Graham Vick's legacy and Birmingham Opera Company, and when we did Cunning Little Vixen in a freezing cold warehouse, well, whenever it was, 2021 or 22, we did that. You know, actually the audience as well in Birmingham understand, they get it, they understand they have to arrive at these venues with several layers on and ready, you know, to battle against the elements. And so again, there's something that audiences have been trained, and you know, they understand what they're going to get if they go to an arts event in Birmingham, which I think again is not like you would find elsewhere. So it's quite special.
I'll pick up on some of that standing in a freezing cold warehouse experience with some of the students in a minute and see how they feel about that as trainee opera students. But can you just taking things back a step? Can you tell us about what the day-to-day role of your piece in Royal Birmingham Conservatoire is? What's a day in the life like for Paul Wingfield? Or is that too massive a question?
A day in the life. Well, it begins with chaos here at home, trying to get the kids out of the house. But you don't want to hear about that.
Amen to that.
And then the day begins. I'm usually in the conservatoire at 9:30, and I teach an awful lot. So I feel very strongly, actually, that it's important that I'm not just a sort of distant head of department, that I have some hand in the students' education, you know, when it comes to performance and the rest of it. So I will teach classes for all of the year groups on a weekly basis. From BMA's one of the very youngest undergraduates right through to top level postgraduate. So I do an awful lot of teaching and a fair amount of coaching as well. So there's that. There is only me in the department as a salaried member of staff. So we have a wonderful team of singing teachers and language coaches and movement coaches, etc., etc. But it's only me sort of running the show. So there's a fair amount of admin to be done at the same time. So and that's true of the opera productions as well. So at the moment, although I'm not conducting Into the Woods, I'm very much sort of in a sort of production manager role, and I love that part side of things as well, because it partly goes back to my sort of, as I said, the sort of things I did as a teenager when I was putting on operas or concerts or whatever. You know, I've always had a fascination not only with the actual performance side of things, but also with just the business of putting on an event. You know, and as a conductor, it's helped me enormously because I have a sympathy with what it means to create a costumes fitting schedule, or what it means. I mean, for the first time Into the Woods, I'm having to learn an awful lot about what it means to mic a singer as well, because you know we're going to use some mics for the first time ever, obviously being the show it is. So I'm learning about that side of things, but actually, because opera and you know putting on a show in general, it's such a collaborative thing, and it involves so many cogs in this machine. It's for me always been fascinating to understand that how I work as a conductor within that, and how it's important that I appreciate what a stage manager has to do, and how they have their particular territory that one doesn't step on, and the director has their particular territory, the choreographer has their particular territory. But you're ultimately, when it's working at its very best, you're all working towards the same goal, you know. So sorry, I'm sort of digressing a bit, but that is also what I do when there's a production on, as well as running the sort of day-to-day activities within the department, and keeping that all shipshape, and the teaching as well. So it's incredibly busy, and the students' education as well. You know, it's a 5-day week. I mean, when I was at university, I was very busy, of course, lots of essay writing and the rest of it. But I remember as well, there was a lot of time when I wasn't doing things and I was left to my own devices. I'd say for the students, actually, particularly the singers at Royal Birmingham Conservatoire, they really have a 5-day week, which is pretty much full, 9 till 5 each day. If they're not doing, you know, a song class, they'll be doing a singing lesson or a coaching or a language lesson in French, German or Italian, or they might be doing yoga, they might be doing dance, might be doing stagecraft. It really takes an awful lot to train a singer, and it involves a lot of different things coalescing to form this one package. So we try to offer all of those things. And what's fascinating for me as a trainer of singers is that, you know, that they might get one thing that maybe technique will sort of, you know, suddenly click into place, you know, but they won't yet have, whilst that's working, you know, maybe their stagecraft will go out the window, and then they try and get that in, but the technique goes out the window, and you're constantly trying to bring this rather slippery ball into one thing, you know. So it is technique which becomes beautiful storytelling, which becomes beautiful use of the body, you know, everything into one, and that's really what makes someone baseline employable, you know, in a very competitive industry.
That sounds complicated for one student. I mean, how big is the Vocal and Operatic Department? How many
about 80
students are you?
students strong, I suppose. Yeah, at any one time. Yeah, about
That's
12 per year group. You know, and because that's relatively small for a vocal department, so it means that I get to know every student personally, you know, and it means that we understand as a staff what that student might need, you know. They might be singing fabulously, really fantastic voice, but they might not be able to act for toffee, you know, and then we have to sort of work out how to encourage that, or they might be a fantastic storyteller, but the voice just doesn't quite want to do the thing it needs to do in order for them to be able to release their imagination, you know. And ultimately, technique is what's going to be the doorway for you to be able to have what we term as colour in the voice. You know, we always talk about vocal colour. I think you should have a different colour there for that sentence, or a different colour for that word. And it's really technique that allows you to access that different colour. So, you know, students will always battling these things and trying to form this total package that I was talking about. And it's a fascinating process, you know. And also, you know, you have a voice in BMUS 1, as in first year undergraduate. and you know, think to yourself, well, goodness, I'm not sure quite what's going to happen to this voice. And then it's quite amazing. It's really extraordinary. I've learned so much over 8, 9 years of doing this. Voices can just rocket, you know, you never ever predict what a voice will do, you know. And similarly, the reverse is true as well. You might have an absolutely fantastic instrument that then sort of plateaus and it doesn't develop in quite the way. You have to find how to make it become the thing that to take it to the next stage. Often that's more challenging than a voice which appears to be to have relatively small scope to begin with, which then sort of suddenly rockets, shoots off, and becomes this amazing thing. So it's great learning. We're all learning all the time, I think, you know, about this thing, and it's fascinating.
I think we can all get a sense of your enthusiasm that you bring to teaching and how you're shaping and molding people and helping them move on to the next level. And I think that probably plays a part in why we were the sort of the #1 conservatoire for student satisfaction, based on the amount of enthusiasm you're bringing forward. Conscious that I've only got a couple of minutes left with you, because I do want to get to Sydney, Bella and Hannah. But last couple of questions for me. One, you've already mentioned the sort of the Linbury and the opera making and things like that. So let's maybe some of the opera outreach work that's made possible by the Linbury Trust as well. So maybe we can circle back to that. And if you can just touch on how we're able to do opera making in a different way to most other opera companies and conservatoires in the country.
Yeah. So when there's again, it's quite a big topic, but I'll try and be brief about it. Just stop me, Terry, won't you, if I'm just
You've
whittling.
got 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay, 3 minutes, right? Okay. Well, so basically, it's I saw coming to Birmingham that there was a unique opportunity, particularly, you know, having been involved with Graham Vick a little and seen what he did in warehouses, that actually we could get students out into site-specific venues. So for our spring opera, we tend to take it out into the city. So that's number one. That's unique. Most other conservatoires tend to have either a theatre or, you know, it tends to be a more traditional venue. Tends to be. I don't want to make too many generalisations. But we have this opportunity at Birmingham to take students into difficult venues and to teach them how to do opera in difficult venues. If you can perform opera where you can't hear the orchestra because they're in another room, then the chances are that if you get the chance, if you're lucky enough to be in a proscenium arch theatre with the conductor in front of you, that it's going to feel a little bit easier. So number one, we're teaching them how to do that. The second thing is we're part of a university. So it was a university that until recently had a costume course and had a set design course, and we were able to use students from those courses, stage management as well. It still has that very successful stage management. We get the students to come and be part of this big machinery of opera. So we're not just talking about singers here, we're talking about student set designers, student costume designers, you know. So that's also relatively unique as well. Now, some of those courses sadly have closed for BCU because the numbers were dwindling. But what we've done instead is forge a new relationship with the Birmingham Ormiston Academy, which is a stage below the Conservatoire, sort of sixth form. I don't know quite how I would describe it, Terry, but I'm going to say a sort of sixth form college, a training college anyway.
Further education.
Further Education College, which next door to the Conservatoire. And we have some fabulous student stage managers from there. They've also been helping build our props and build our set and been involved with wigs, hair and makeup. So the key idea here that particularly I think attracted the Linbury Trust was the idea of the talent pipeline. So what we're trying to do here as a conservatoire is connect up the idea of opera to 16 to 18-year-olds in the city coming through, joining the conservatoire students doing this opera, going on then and into the industry or into further study. So we're trying here it's much more than the conservatoire itself. It's actually about the communities that surround us as well. Of course, our outreach then goes to sort of first schools or into the public, into the many diverse communities that surround the conservatoire. So there's a very wide reach that I think the Linbury were interested in, and particularly with the recent council cuts in Birmingham, it's become even more important, you know, the responsibility for Birmingham Conservatoire to be very much at the heart of opera making and very much leading on it, it becomes even more important. So that, we're fulfilling, I hope, it's a very small world, we're not saving lives, but we are doing something, I think, that's very, very important for arts and culture in the West Midlands. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've been an arts fundraiser for a long time now, and you can sometimes lose sight of how important, but relatively, like, we're not curing cancer, we're not saving lives in those senses, but I think we can all agree as enthusiasts and aficionados of the arts that, I mean, without opera and culture and literature and music generally, like, wouldn't life be boring and
yes,
not
absolutely.
really worth living?
Count myself to be the luckiest. But every day I'm being surrounded by wonderful song texts which teach me something about life, wonderful operas. I mean, these things are so important, for everyone in terms of just healthy living, to be surrounded by stories and to be being told stories and to be learning about your own life through stories, I think we underestimate its value, I think. Yeah.
When I was doing my A-levels, which quite a long time ago now, I studied English Lit and I studied biology, both at A-level, and I was very firmly on the English Lit side, and we had a lot of T-shirts made to go and break into the biology department saying the world is made of words, not of atoms, because we are all defined by our stories. Yes. So it's always a learning one. Last question for you, Paul, before I move on to the three. In Orpheus, you got to come out of the conductor's box at the end and show us your dance moves. For those that didn't have the chance to see Orpheus, Paul did get involved in the closing can at the end of the piece. So how was that, coming out and shaking your legs around in the air?
Well, I realize we're joined today by Kate Flatt, who I know is an esteemed choreographer. So I've got to be very careful what I say here. Yes, I trained to be a tap dancer as a kid when I was about 12. I hated it, actually, but anyway, that's another story. But it did teach me an awful lot about movement as a conductor. It taught me how to use my body and how to, So I actually learned an awful lot. But anyway, that's another story. I think, yes, I love getting involved, as the students will tell you. Yeah, it was a great pleasure to be able to share the stage with them. I mean, I very much enjoy performing with them as a conductor, because again, this is unique. I think to have a head of department then who's also sharing, on the front line with them and doing it with them, But to be able to share that sort of sense of celebration at the end of Orpheus and to have such fun with that and to dust off my dance shoes was
Amazing. Thank you, Paul. And with that, you're off the hook now for the next half an hour, unless you would feel free to chip back in as we go along. But I think we're going to focus a little bit on the careers of our three students up to this point and talk a little bit more about Into the Woods and the roles that they're taking on. But I will, Gemma, if we can switch to our three students, just to segue neatly from one to the other. You were all in Orpheus in various different casts, so was it as much fun watching Paul come out for the conducting box? But of course you see him all the time in the rehearsal studio, so is that part of the course? Is that the total norm with Paul?
I must admit, when we were staging the finale and Paul said, "I'm going to do the dance with you," I didn't believe him.
I did think he was joking, but yeah. I think I've never seen Paul dance before, but it also didn't surprise me with his enthusiasm and showed how much he loved getting involved.
Yeah, it was very enthusiastic. I thought it was great. There's one picture, it was me and another student, GP, were on either side of him when he was doing the dance, and there's a picture that the photographer took where his arms were out like that, and all of us were like, "Whoa, Paul!" It was very enthusiastic.
Taking centre stage and stealing the limelight.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Really appreciate. I know you're knee deep in rehearsals, or probably more waist deep, shoulder deep in rehearsals at this point. So it must be a bit flat out. Really grateful for you to take the time out and have a chat with us this evening. I've got kind of the same questions sort of pitched at the three of you, so I'll just ask one question and just feel free to chip in and sort of tell me a little bit, so that I'm not coming to each of you in turn. But kicking off with Hannah, tell us about your journey to RBC and how what brought you to Birmingham in the first place.
Yeah, so I grew up doing musical theatre actually, so it's really nice to finish the kind of undergrad on that note. So yeah, lots of performing, and then in my singing lessons, it was sort of mentioned that I had a classical sound and everything. So I started looking into conservatoires. I didn't know anyone who had been to any. I'm from Ireland and from Wexford, which is why I sound like this. And there's one conservatoire in Ireland, but it's very, very small. And I sort of thought I might want to move abroad. So I applied for absolutely everywhere. I had no idea what they were, what they would require of me. And what was really nice about Birmingham was that, you audition for everywhere and they kind of come back to you and they're like, oh, not quite, you need this and you need this. And I wasn't quite sure if it was the right thing for me. But Birmingham really, they're so enthusiastic in the audition and they really met me. They kind of saw potential, which I think they're really great at, like among all the students, as Paul was saying, like you see so many voices completely transform, but they just saw a potential and then sort of met you at the level that you were at and sort of invited you into the world, which a lot of the other conservatoires would kind of be like, leave it another few years, etc. So yeah, came to Birmingham, really didn't know what I was expecting. I don't even think I knew what the benefits were, like all the things that Paul was saying about being an undergrad and being in operas and getting to perform so much. I didn't even realize that was going to be as great as it has been. So yeah, I think it was kind of a fluke, but I'm very, very grateful that I've ended up here. Yeah.
Well, I'm very glad that you're here because I've seen a bit of all three of you watching the operas over the last couple of years. But Hannah, because you were front and centre in Orpheus, saw quite a lot of that performance as well. So yeah, really glad that you made it. And Sydney, how about yourself? What brought you here?
So I found my passion for sort of classical singing when I was in my secondary school because we had a very traditional sort of choir, and through that I got found as having a beautiful voice, and I knew when I was younger I wanted to be an opera singer before actually really knowing what opera was. Dedicated myself to it. And I got teachers, and I remember looking through the different conservatoires because I knew there was something inside of me that wanted to do conservatoire, that really, really wanted to do singing. And I got drawn to Birmingham because of the performance opportunities. It was reading through the other conservatoires and it's like, not until you're postgrad. But whereas Birmingham was like, no, if you're good enough and you're second year and up, you can audition, you can get the parts. And that's what really drew me to it. And I've loved it. I know a lot of musical people around me, especially at my secondary school, the teachers actually came to Birmingham before me. So I had sort of people who knew the sort of area and the teaching pushing me further to do it, and I have just loved it. I've loved it so much.
Fabulous. And Bella, how about you? Because you're third year, so you're with us for a whole other year, right?
Yeah, I've still got another year. So yeah, similar to Hannah, I grew up doing musical theatre. So my first thing was actually dance. So I did that for about 16 years since I was 3, and then tried to go to drama school, went to a small drama school in Hackney Wick called the ICMT and did a foundation year there. And as much as I loved it, just knew it wasn't the right thing for what I wanted to invest all my time in doing. I didn't just want to do musical theatre. And I had grown up doing classical, vocal lessons as well as musical theatre, and just thought, I honestly thought, I don't know if I'm good enough to do it. I don't know if I'm, but I'm going to give it a go. And all my family are musicians. So my mum went to the academy a long time ago. My sister went to Guildhall and has just done a postgrad at the Royal Welsh. So I kind of had an idea about what conservatoire was, and, but they aren't singers. So I was kind of like going in a bit blind. And then I applied to different places, as a lot of people, just apply everywhere. And my first audition was Birmingham. And as soon as I got here and did the audition, I was like, okay, if I get in, I don't want to audition anywhere else. And that's what happened. I politely emailed and said I'm not going to audition to the other places when I found out I got in, because there was just such a brilliant feeling when I was here in the audition, and it seemed like they really cared about what I was doing when I was singing and having my interview, and they workshopped things in my audition and gave me a chance, and like Hannah said, saw potential, and I think that was really important. And I just got a really good feeling about the building and the energy here, and like Paul was saying, the really friendly, supportive atmosphere I could feel straight away. So yeah, and then I ended up in Birmingham. I'd never been to Birmingham until my audition, and yeah, I was just like, oh, I just know I need to be here. So yeah,
I think there is quite a unique art scene in Birmingham. That's I was at a thing at the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce yesterday, and one of the comments that came along very strongly from us, the CBSO, from Birmingham Royal Ballet, from Birmingham Opera Company, everybody's willing to collaborate in a way that you just don't seem to get in other cities, and I think that's a real benefit to audiences, but to you guys as well, and it gives those opportunities. So I'm glad that you found the same here in Birmingham. Paul's sort of given us his day in the life of, I'm sure you all have more or less the same kind of experience, but it's a long day being a student. What does it entail?
I think, yeah, everything really.
There's a lot.
I think it's really interesting because every term is slightly different as well, which is nice.
Every year is slightly different.
Every year is different. So, you know, we might have, like Paul said, you know, a song class with either Paul or one of the singing teachers, depending on the day, depending on the week. Coachings, it's brilliant because we get lots of coachings here.
Visiting tutors.
Lots of input. And then we might go to a movement class and then yoga after lunch, you know. So
we've recording skills as well, and then there's also the Bachelor of Music side of it with all the history,
all the lectures, history,
and then 2 hours of your own practice on top of that.
It's in a practice room in between your breaks, you know. So
what I found quite interesting about fourth year is with the project, as Paul mentioned, is that I've found, particularly in my diary, I've had a lot of free time because I've had to do less sort of the academic classes, still all the coachings and whatnot, but that time has been filled with setting up my project and getting it all ready and all sorted, organising all the diaries and whatnot, and then doing all the paperwork to send it in.
It's also a common experience. I know when I was in second year, I was involved in some of the fourth year projects, and same Bella's been in loads of projects this year, so it's constant, whether it's the spring or the summer opera that's being organised, or it's student projects, or I know like the piano department, the students all work with the piano department for their chamber exams, so you have constant rehearsals, constant coachings, constant practice.
It's quite good because we managed to, I think especially this year, I've, like Hannah said, I was in 4 people's final projects this year, and they were all completely different. So, you know, helping them out do different things. So I did a choral one, I did one where I was dressed up as a Tudor, I did, you know, so I did loads of, you know, so there was loads of different things, but it meant that I think that I've been able to learn so many things, as well as, you know, we do historical classes, historical performance classes, lectures. We did a musical theatre module this year, you know, so there's just so much. It's busy, but in a good way.
There's a lot to sink your teeth into, but everybody here is so passionate about it that you almost don't mind spending 12 hours in the building,
the variety
doing all the different things.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we all get into the arts, is that love of doing it and wanting to. I mean, I frequently go to events or performances and walk back past the Conservatoire building, and you guys will still be there at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, oh, hold on, you're not even performing this evening. Haven't you got homes to go to? But it is a home in a very real sense. I will get to Into the Woods, I promise. But Sydney and Hannah, do you want to tell us a little bit about your fourth year projects? And Bella, have you got one planned already? Because it's coming up pretty quickly.
Sydney, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So what I really appreciated about the fourth year project is you could do anything you wanted to. Anything. And they gave us some ridiculous ideas of really completely off the wall stuff people have done in the past. My project was very, very personal to me. So I identify as non-binary, and one thing I like doing in my singing is exploring swapping genders. So I did a performance evening where I learned 10 operatic arias and I gender swapped them. So the first half I did in dress and heels, and I sang like Belmonte's aria from The Abduction from Sorel by Mozart, and I also sang feminine arias in a suit, sort of almost challenging the audience to go, why can't we sort of swap, and what sort of ideas comes out of this? And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. It was bloody hard. 40 minutes of solo opera arias is a lot to give yourself, but I learned so much from it, and I've come out so much stronger and more understanding of who I am and what I am capable of doing when I put my mind to it.
This may be a really naive and stupid question. Please forgive me if it is, but if you're changing outfits, were you chopping and changing a lot of quick changes? Was there like a quick like pause and I'll come back, or was it 50-50? And
I did 2 halves, so I did 20 minutes, got changed, and then 20 minutes, which
sensible. Not as funny, but sensible. That sounds amazing. I wish I'd seen that one. I'm sorry I missed it.
As Sydney was saying, we just had so much choice, but I feel like we're very well sort of guided with it. We have a proposal that Bella would have just done in 3rd year, and we're very much like brought through every step of it. But so yeah, I started off with 2 or 3 different ideas. I was going to do a recording, which is a really great part of being here, is that we have the music tech students. So we can use the studios for free. I was going to make an album of different female composers and collaborate with some string quartets and some other instrumentalists and things. And then I was just super fortunate to get this nice sized part in Orfeo. I played Eurydice. So I was like, this sort of feels like the perfect moment to really focus in on my technique and stuff like that. I was singing high notes that when I was cast, I was like, Paul, I can't sing these notes. I don't know why you're giving this to me. But yeah, so it gave me a really nice opportunity to sink my teeth into technique for the year. It was a super like larger than life part, and I love that kind of stuff, the like massive character things. So yeah, so I prepared for the role and then was marked on my performance in a spring opera, which is a really nice opportunity for the 4th year undergrads. They can choose to use a big role in the spring operas as their project. Which yeah, it was super nice. It's so great to like work alongside some postgrads, and you just learn so much from them, learning from an amazing like creative team, Paul and Rebecca, who we've worked with in the past. So it kind of just felt like this nice like opportunity that came at the right time. And yeah, I got some really nice reviews from it, really enjoyed it, learned a lot, and then there's still lots to learn. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, I just, like Hannah said, put in my proposal for my final project, which will be next year, and it just found out it got approved, so that's very exciting. Nice. So I'm doing an internal public performance here at the Conservatoire in the recital hall, and the whole piece is based around a song cycle written by Jonathan Dove for a mezzo-soprano and a baritone called Man, Woman, Child. So it's about a sailor who goes off to war, and just about their relationship, and they have a child, and I'm collaborating it all with some consort music, because I also like to do choral singing as well, and then some narration and some letters. I've got a saxophone playing with one of the consort pieces, you know, so basically a piece of theatre based around that song cycle. So I'm very excited and kind of ready to get going on it, to be honest.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that, and I'm sure it will all come together nicely. When you say it's internal, is it the kind of thing that our guests tonight are going to be able to come and see, or
it will be public. It will be advertised within the RBC events page. So yeah,
amazing. So this time next year.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, with 15 minutes left in our evening, let's talk a little bit about Into the Woods, because hey, this was billed as an Into the Woods. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do have some questions, please do pop them in the chat. There's nothing in there at the minute, so if nobody else wants to ask questions, I will continue to fill up our time, but please do feel free to ask anything that you might want to for Sydney, Bella and Hannah, or Paul if we want to bring him back with about 5 minutes to go at the end. So do please pop them in the chat. Otherwise, I will happily fill the next 15 minutes. Guys, can you tell us a little about the characters that you're playing in Into the Woods? I know there's no doubling up here. Everybody's doing a different one. So this is the time where we can potentially get into spoiler territory. But Hannah, you're doing Baker's wife, which I think is one of the sort of central characters. Well, they're all pretty central, aren't they?
Yeah, it's very ensemble piece.
Yeah.
So the baker's wife is technically a part of Rapunzel's story, and they're so a bunch of different fairy tales. They all very much feed into the original Grimm's fairy tales. So in the Rapunzel original Grimm's fairy tale, there was a house that sort of the woman who the mother of Rapunzel, they were stealing beans and Rapunzel, which is a cabbage, from their neighbour's house, which happened to be a witch, who was Bella. And then the witch ends up with Rapunzel, and then starts Rapunzel's story. So that house that stole those things. So they have a son, and that's the baker's wife. So yeah, in sort of a long roundabout way, I'm connected to Rapunzel's story.
Yeah.
But I think the baker and the baker's wife sort of act as this normal couple who are just experiencing this crazy, chaotic world. But yeah, they add a bit of sort of normalcy to it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
sorry, before we move on, I noticed in your bio that you're supported by the Josephine Baker Trust. So was this just fate that you were going to be the baker's wife?
Maybe.
Paul's casting process. Sorry, just a whimsical aside. Yeah, okay. So baker's wife and Bella. So you're the witch. And you were a witch in...
I know! Time goes! So I've been a witch twice now. It's only been 2 years now.
Dido and Aeneas, wasn't it? I was going to say.
Yeah. Second witch in Dido, which was really fun. And then, the witch, the sheer witch, is really exciting and a big challenge, but really enjoying it. And it's fun to find. I'm finding the complexity of the character, because playing a villain, there's so many layers, because there's actually some moments where it's really, she shows her vulnerability and has some quite emotional songs and seems like quite a normal person. So that's been really fun in rehearsals, kind of coming up with how to play her. So yeah.
Now, I've not seen the piece, so I'm purely nicking this off the Wikipedia article. But Hannah mentioned that Baker and Baker's wife are this kind of central, quote-unquote, normal couple that we're all supposed to identify with. But the witch is kind of villainous, but at the same time, she's the one that's right. She doesn't pull her punches, and she tells people... but she speaks her mind, and she's correct in everything she says. So that must be she's not just a boo hiss pantomime character.
Yeah, and I think also as Rapunzel's mother, well, not literal mother, but as her mother,
a maternal figure.
Maternal figure who's raised her because she took Rapunzel. I sing a song called "Stay With Me," which is at the beginning, I'm telling off Rapunzel for disobeying me and leaving the tower and meeting a prince. And then it switches to stay, you are my child, I'm your home. And it kind of shows that she actually does really care for Rapunzel. And then something happens in Act 2, and the witch again has to show her maternal, loving and caring side, which is a weird balance to find, but it's making it really interesting and adding a lot of depth to the character. So yeah.
There's a fantastic line, isn't there? What is it? I'm not good, I'm not bad, I'm just right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It sort of sums her up, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
She's a realist.
Yeah.
Amazing. Sydney, tell us about your role.
So I am playing Jack from the tale of Jack and the Beanstalk. And Jack is incredibly naive. He's an innocent young boy who sells his cow to Baker and Baker's wife as the stories begin to sort of intertwine. And he's just so excited to just be on this adventure, and it's taking quite a lot of energy to constantly have this sort of boyish energy, but I'm really enjoying it.
So is that sort of played out all the way through? Is Jack just this... Because the nursery rhyme version is very much almost I can't use that word anymore. He's very naive and taken advantage of by a lot of people, but has a lot of youth and exuberance and can't wait to get up the beanstalk and see what's up there and steal stuff and bring it back home again. So whether we take that as a metaphor for the British Empire. So is that what you've brought to it? Is that what comes through the whole piece, that sort of energy, just so excited like a puppy, can't wait to get to the next thing?
Oh yeah, I definitely, through the first half he remains this sort of very naive, very innocent boy. Yes, he is taken advantage of, and he doesn't really think through the consequences of his actions, but he doesn't stay that way. Stuff happens in the second half and he grows up a bit. He is given a moment pretty much to go from that boyish energy and has to become a man, and is faced with a tough moment. And he comes through. So it's quite interesting going from the really, really energetic to the more mature Jack. But he's not fully grown up. You can't fully grow up overnight. But he definitely does mature suddenly, pretty much.
And again, this is what I've gleaned from the synopsis that I read today, but it seems as though the way Sondheim's written this, all of the characters go on a journey. I think in quite a lot of drama, you get your central protagonist who goes on a journey and everybody else kind of stays in stasis around them, and that one person in the middle gets to learn and grow, whereas everybody else is kind of static. But in this piece, it really feels as though, and the way the three of you have described your roles, they all go on a journey in some capacity. So that must be quite exciting as an ensemble piece.
Yeah, it's nice because I think that when I first looked at the show, I mean, I knew the show, but when I first, sat down, got the part with the script and the libretto, the score and the libretto, I thought, how am I going to keep up? Because there's so much intertwining storylines and, like you said, the growth of each character, which, I mean, when we've been playing it out, it's actually really nice to watch because everyone gets to go on their own journey and we're not just looking at one person. Everyone has their part, and you can see how they grow. I
think it's quite nice because it means that every time we do a scene where the same characters talk together, they're at different stakes. There's different reasons that they're talking about what they're talking about. So I know first time Jack talks to Baker's wife is trying to deceive him and buy the cow for basically no money. And then when it's like talking later and there's more honesty and there's more humanity, and you can see the characters' different emotions where they are in their stories clash differently and sort of intertwine differently.
Yeah, I think it makes for a really exciting watch for every single person to care about what they're doing so much. And I think it's just so great because we're all going to go into the world and be in these choruses. So to have this opportunity to be in an ensemble of we're talking 12 to 15 main characters, and for each of us to care so much about where we start and where we finish. And then, me and Sydney graduating now to go into the world and sort of have that in our back pocket of no matter what room you're entering in, where you've been, what's happened to you, it's a great foundation. I think it's such a great show to have done at some point in your life, for sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. We've got a couple of questions from the audience, so thank you folks for contributing some more questions. I'm going to throw these at you in order. Everybody chip in. Julie asks, after the performance, what feeling or idea would you like the audience to take away? Very deep. Love it.
A really big emphasis in the show is this idea of always wanting more, and maybe not appreciating what's in front of you. I think walking away and thinking that, because each of the characters, they do that, they want more, and then you'll see what happens to them when they want more. But appreciating what's in front of you and thinking about working together, I think.
Yeah, I think another big thing that we focused on, even on day one in the table read, day one of everyone being together, we spoke a lot about, we sing the words, no one is alone, you are not alone, no one is alone. And we spoke about what that meant. And I think that an important thing, I think, for the audience to walk away with is that every single person in the show has affected each other without knowing, even if they haven't met, so it's kind of saying that even if you feel alone, you're not alone, because everything that everyone's done has impacted you in some way and has led you to this moment. And I think it just shows how much we affect each other and our actions and how they impact each other.
Kind of building on from that, there's also a huge theme in it about sort of parents and children. I know definitely throughout your arc, and there's this whole idea of how we interact with our parents, how we interact with children, how we interact with the people around us. And I think something I would want the audience to walk away with is trying to think about their own relationships with people, and if, you know, how they can make it better if it needs to be made better, how they can like appreciate it more, not wanting more from something that can just bloom by itself.
I also think there's something so cool about the fact that I'm sure a lot of people have gone to the Bridge Theatre and seen Into the Woods things there, and on professional stages seen adults perform these things. And not that we're children, we are obviously young adults, but we are younger adults. And I think it'll just be really interesting for us to sort of preach to an audience of adults, a bunch of kids, about like how you should treat people and what are the consequences of that. I think there's something that's quite powerful about some younger people saying that to an older audience, which is really exciting.
So I'm going to radically lower the tone now, but in reading what I was reading the synopsis, it really struck me that every character starts out Act 1 and they've got a wish, and that's very much part of the plot, and they kind of all get their wishes fulfilled at the end of the first act. And I'm like, okay, so where is this going then? And as you say, everybody then has their, well, I've got that, and now I need this next thing. And it doesn't always end well for them. And so as we've been sitting here, and this is where I radically lower the tone, it really reminds me of a film called Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which none of you will have heard of, and I completely appreciate that, and probably none of our audience members either. Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, very dude comedy, early 90s, but they go on this incredible emotional journey. At the end of it, they sort of go on stage because they're a rock and roll band, and they say, we've realised that the best place to be is here, and the best time to be is now. And it really sort of strikes me that that's quite an emotionally resonant kind of stop striving for the next thing and just enjoy what you've got while you've got it. And that really hit me as well. You were talking there, so maybe that's what we want to take from it, Julie. It's a bit like Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left. So Kate has asked, I'm impressed by the focus on performance and the creativity of the independent project, but how do you as students feel that movement supports you vocally and as a performer, not just in a production?
I think for me, it's very much understanding your body and how your body works. So getting to grips with actually how do you move your arms in sync? How do you do them in different ways? And then you can add that into songs. So, for example, if you're asked to go over to the corner and sing a song whilst writing a letter or throwing stuff up in the air, or God forbid, whilst singing the can whilst doing a dance, you have a baseline foundation to sort of work with, and which is really nice.
I think something I've really learnt from doing the movement classes in particular is about being, like Sydney said, in tune with my body, and how that can really affect my singing, just in general, like technically. And we do a lot of checking in and like scanning the body and seeing what feels good and what doesn't. And I definitely didn't know how much it would impact and like my singing. And when I've, over the last 3 years, learned about how to look after my body and how doing things in movement, not even for a scene or a moment on stage or for an acting purpose, but actually just to, I don't know, free up the body or to access a different muscle. Or we've got a yoga ball in the vocal studio, and sometimes we, I've used that before in different lessons and things. So I think it's really interesting because our body is such an important thing we need to look after as singers. And I think that learning how to move, I mean, I was fortunate because I was I was a dancer, but I think that I had to learn how to free my body up and not be, holding a ballet, posture, or, so I think that's been a really, really important and like interesting thing to learn.
Yeah, and I think our movement tutors, we're really fortunate that it's all a part of movement that performance anxiety and meditation comes into that, so that we can not only bring these skills into our singing but into who we are as people as well. We're able to wash off our days and wash off what's going on with us, which is such a big part of being a performer. Like some of these songs that Bella is singing in Into the Woods, like they're really deep and they're really dark, and being able to separate yourself from these things, that's all a part of movement. That's all a part of checking in meditation, performance anxiety, such a massive thing. I've found that doing job interviews before I started in conservatoire versus now, job interviews for a pub or for something completely different, nothing to do with singing, is completely different. My presence in my day-to-day life is so much more different now after 4 years of movement classes, stagecraft classes, and it's noticed. I'm a lot more successful in these interviews than I was 4 years ago. So it's nice that we can bring that not only into performance, but kind of into our lives as well.
Can I chip in as well that I think from a coach's perspective that movement and reading bodies is really important in terms of it so often reflects something that's either happening or not happening on a technical level internally. We talk to the students about this an awful lot. So usually it's invariably lack of movement or lack of fluidity that is reflecting something that's not working with the instrument itself. So a frozen gesture, a locked hand, locked knees are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to sort of an outward sign of something that's not quite working within. So we talk an awful lot about posture and alignment, and just as a part of our daily diet in the department.
Thank you. I think it's something that never occurred to me, even having worked for Birmingham Royal Ballet for a while. Just the importance of physicality and posture and everything, even in music, and the way people carry themselves is so incredibly important. And as you say, stagecraft and presence, but also for being able to hold notes and the way that your musculature works towards supporting those things. So yeah, really interesting. Thank you, Kate, for the question. Very much appreciated. I think we're about out of time, so I'd just like to ask. You've vanished from the screen for me. Hannah and Sydney, 4th years. What's next for you guys?
Well, I'm staying on for masters here because I love it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm staying on for a year that's called a PSP, which is like you can do it as a foundational year before conservatoire, or you can do it as a postgraduate year. It's just non-academic, and I basically get to be in all the operas again.
So best of all worlds, get to be in all the operas without any of the essay writing and shenanigans.
Exactly.
Phenomenal. Well, I'm really glad that you're going to be sticking around with us, both of you, for another couple of years, and probably being in some of Bella's final projects as well. Thank you again for taking time out of your evening. I know it's hard graft at the minute, so really grateful for you taking some time. And there's a couple of messages of thanks in the chat as well. So thank you all. Really appreciate everybody taking some time out to come and be with us tonight. As I say, if you've not already got tickets for Into the Woods, hopefully you are now inspired to do so. It is coming up very, very quickly. What am I thinking? Is it 11th of June?
11th, 12th, 13th of June. Yeah, a couple of
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for saving my blushes by not having that one quickly. Yeah, 11th of June. So yeah, is the opening night. So please come along and support one of those performances if you can. If you'd like to become a member of the RBCA and help support our students directly, you'll find more information on our website about that as well. Or please do drop me, Maria or Gemma, an email. We'll be very pleased to have a chat with you. And thank you again for joining us. It's been a real pleasure having you all here, but I think we should let everybody go and have a well-deserved rest, because they'll be back at it again tomorrow morning. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon.